Welcome to Confident City Cycling. This presentation is a partnership between the Major Taylor Cycling Club of Kansas City and Bike Walk KC. My name is Laura Fox. I'm the Director of Education at Bike Walk KC. I am a licensed cycling instructor and have been teaching adult bicycle safety classes for 9 years. These are the topics that we'll be covering today. Throughout the presentation, I will attempt to give the point of view of interacting with traffic from the bicyclists and the vehicle drivers' perspectives. Here are several points of traffic laws that we should all be familiar with. There are 2 notes I want to make, and we'll cover many of the other bullet points later on in the presentation. When you come to an intersection at the same time as a vehicle, we are taught that the vehicle on the right goes through first. Sometimes the advice given when coming to an intersection when there is a car there is to make eye contact with the vehicle driver just to make sure that they see you. While that can be useful, I would recommend also watching the wheels of the car. Dark window tinting, reflective sunglasses, and sun glare can all make it hard to know if eye contact has actually been made. If those wheels are moving, there might be a chance the driver hasn't actually seen you. Second, when we teach bike safety, there is sometimes confusion around which side of the road to ride on. You always ride your bike on the right side of the road, going with the flow of traffic. Pedestrians, on the other hand, need to walk against the flow of traffic, primarily when there is not a sidewalk or side path. Due to walking being a naturally slower mode of transportation, pedestrians can maneuver away from oncoming traffic much more easily than a bicyclist, and the ability to avoid hazards, read traffic signs, and make safe turning moments is jeopardized when riding the wrong way. Passing is intended to happen on the left side of slower road users. Never pass on the right. These are a few of the most common questions we get asked about rules. You will see that there's a lot more spelled out if you read the actual bicycle statutes for Kansas and Missouri. There are many similarities between the bicycle statutes of Kansas and Missouri, with only a few terminology differences. So 1, bicycle rights to the road. Both Kansas and Missouri state that bicycles have the same right to the roadways as other vehicles. They also have the same responsibility to follow the rules of the road. In Kansas City, there is the affirmative defense law, which means if you are at a red light, you must stop, but can wait a reasonable amount of time to proceed. And this is usually in the case when you come to a signalized intersection and the light doesn't change for you. Kansas has a dead red law. Under the dead red law, if you reach an intersection and the traffic signal will not respond to your bicycle, after waiting what you determine is a reasonable amount of time, you may cross the intersection. This action, when performed, is done with the understanding that the bicyclist will not impede cross traffic or cause an accident. Overtaking bicycles. Missouri says that motor vehicles shall leave a safe distance. Kansas says that motor vehicles shall pass at a distance of not less than 3 feet. Kansas also states that a vehicle can pass a bicycle in a no passing zone when it is safe to do so, but Missouri does not make that exception at this time. Lights and reflectors. Both Kansas and Missouri state that a bicycle must be equipped with a front-facing white light visible from 500 feet. They both also state that the bicycle shall have a rear-facing red reflector, which is visible from 100 to 600 feet. Riding on roadways. Both Kansas and Missouri state that when riding on a street or highway, a cyclist shall ride as near to the right side of the road, and Missouri states as safe, and then Kansas states as practicable. Kansas law states that whenever a usable path for bicycles has been provided adjacent to a roadway, the bicyclist shall use the path and not the road. Missouri does not have such a law, but the city of Kansas City does. It's good to note that in Kansas, a sidewalk is not a usable path for bicycles. Those are for pedestrians, and there are other facilities for bike riders, but sidewalks are not considered usable paths for bicycles. The state of Missouri states that riding on the sidewalk is permitted everywhere except a business district. However, Kansas City, Missouri does not enforce this law. At Bike Walk KC, we do not recommend riding on the sidewalk anywhere. E-bikes are allowed on the roads of both Kansas and Missouri. Kansas defines a motorized bicycle as every device having 2 tandem wheels or 3 wheels, which may be propelled by either human power or helper motor, or by both, and which has a motor which produces not more than 3.5 brake horsepower, a cylinder capacity of not more than 130 cubic centimeters, an automatic transmission, and the capability of a maximum design speed of no more than 30 miles per hour, except a low power cycle. The state of Missouri defines electric bikes as any 2 or 3 wheeled device that has an automatic transmission and a motor of less than 750 watts and is capable of propelling the device at a maximum speed of not more than 30 miles per hour on level ground. You can think of this list as pro tips for smart cycling. The first 4 are pretty self-explanatory and align with the list from the Principles of Traffic Law slide. I'd like to elaborate on the last 2 bullet points. Thinking ahead refers to trying to anticipate what drivers, pedestrians, and other bikes will do next. Watching for turning vehicles and door zones, looking ahead for road hazards, and understanding your route and what kind of traffic situations you may encounter. Riding ready reminds us to perform the ABC quick check before every ride, carry clothing, tools, and supplies that are appropriate for our ride, and wearing a helmet.
A Verbo is for sharing all kinds of moments. From team.
The ABC Quick Check is a 5-part safety check that makes sure your bike is safe to ride and that you're safe to ride it. A stands for air. Squeeze your tires to make sure that they're filled with air. They should feel firm. If they're squishy, you'll need to put more air into them. By looking on the side of your tire, you can find out how much PSI, pounds per square inch, to inflate to. B stands for brakes. Make sure that both of your brakes are functioning properly by squeezing both brake levers and rocking your bike forwards and backwards. Your front tire should come off the ground when you pull your bike back, and your back tire should come off the ground when you push your bike forward. C stands for chain. Make sure that your chain is lubricated and free of rust and debris. Also make sure that it moves through the drive system by spinning your pedals backwards. Quick stands for quick releases. A lot of bikes have quick release levers on their seat posts that allows you to easily adjust your seat height. If your bike does have this lever, make sure that your quick release is tightened after adjusting your seat. Some bikes also have quick releases that attach wheels to forks or to stays. Make sure these are tight too. Check stands for check yourself. Ensure that your shoes are tied and that your helmet is secure. If you're riding with pants, roll up your right pant leg so that it doesn't get caught in the chain. Do this safety check every time you ride your bike. Helmet is the most important piece of safety equipment that any bike rider can wear. To fit a helmet properly, first put your helmet on so that the adjustment dial is in the back. Adjust your dial for fit and comfort. Then buckle the strap, ensuring that you have about 2 fingers worth of space between your chin and your chin strap. Take those same 2 fingers and make sure that the helmet straps are making a V shape around your ears. Finally, you should be able to look up and barely see the front of your helmet. Keep in mind that everyone has different size heads and hairstyles, so if your helmet fitting process deviates slightly from our suggestions, that's totally okay. Just make sure that your head is protected and that your helmet feels comfortable to wear.
The next several slides go through local bike facilities that can be found in Kansas City. Here we have Southwest Boulevard in Rosedale, and we have a bike lane. Bike lanes designate an exclusive space for bicyclists through the use of pavement markings and signage. The bike lane is located adjacent to motor vehicle travel lanes and flows in the same direction as motor vehicle traffic. Bike lanes are typically on the right side of the street between the adjacent travel lane and curb, road edge, or parking lane. This facility type may be located on the left side when installed on one-way streets, or may be buffered if space permits. Bike lanes enable bicyclists to ride at their preferred speed without interference from prevailing traffic conditions. Bike lanes also facilitate predictable behavior and movements between traffic conditions. Bike lanes also facilitate predictable behavior and movements between bicyclists and motorists. Bicyclists may leave the bike lane to pass other bicyclists, make left turns, avoid obstacles or debris, and avoid other conflicts with other road users of the street. This is the bike lane on Grand. And here you see that it has an added white stripe on the left side of it. And this is a buffered bike lane. This is the same bike lane from Grand, and now we're at 11th. But you see the bike lane leaves the street and moves to the sidewalk behind the bus stop. Here's kind of another angle, an aerial, as well as one from the other side. So caution must be used because of people waiting for buses. So note the stop sign like thing on the street light. So note, there is a stop sign like thing on the street light. It says cyclists must stop. This is a confusing sign. It is not a stop sign, but a sign that warns cyclists to stop when the signal indicates and use caution when re-entering the street. You must watch for turning traffic. And note on the color green. Green is the accepted color for bike facilities in the US, although it is not universal. Most often, it is used to denote points of conflict, such as driveways and intersections, but sometimes it is used for the entire facility. Parking protected bike lanes are another form of protected and buffered bike lane. This is just another angle of the buffered parking protected bike lane. The two-way cycle track, also known as a multimodal lane. Two-way cycle tracks, also known as protected bike lanes, separated bikeways, and on-street bike paths, are physically separated cycle tracks that allow bicycle movement in both directions on one side of the road. The use of bollards and concrete pavers dedicates and protects space for bicyclists by improving perceived comfort and safety. It also eliminates risk and fear of collisions with overtaking vehicles. A bike box is a designated area at the head of a traffic lane at a signalized intersection that provides bicyclists with a safe and visible way to get ahead of queuing traffic during the red signal phase. This increases the visibility of bicyclists, reduces signal delay for cyclists, facilitates bicyclists' left turn positioning at intersections during red signal indication, but it only applies to bike boxes that extend across the entire intersection. They also help facilitate the transition from a right side bike lane to a left side bike lane during red signal indication. This only applies again to bike boxes that extend across the entire intersection. Lastly, this helps group bicyclists together to clear an intersection quickly, minimizing impediment to transit or other traffic. This is a two-stage left turn box. The bicycle signal head. Bicycle signals are typically used to improve identified safety or operational problems involving bicycle facilities or to provide guidance for bicyclists at intersections where they may have different needs from other road users, such as bicycle-only movements, leading bicycle intervals. Bicycle signal heads may be installed at signalized intersections to indicate bicycle signal phases and other bicycle-specific timing strategies. In the United States, bicycle signal heads typically use standard 3-lens signal heads in green, yellow, and red lenses. Multi-use paths or side use path. These are large sidewalks at least 8 feet wide, but usually 10 feet wide. They are designated for both pedestrians and bicyclists. Bicyclists must yield to pedestrians on the side path. Bicyclists should always announce their presence to pedestrians by voice, on your left, or ringing a bell. When riding, which lane should you use? The rule of thumb is to always choose the rightmost lane that suits your destination. So once you've chosen the correct lane to be in, where should you be within that lane? Positioning yourself in the right space increases your visibility, increases your ability to avoid hazards, and allows for predictability. After reviewing the Smart Cycling lane selection and lane positioning slides, it's easy to spot several issues with this group of bike riders. There are several skills necessary for lane positioning. Scanning is the ability to turn your head while maintaining a straight line and is one of the most important bike handling skills to have. Making yourself aware of your surroundings ensures that you can remain safe while being informed of what other road users are doing. Often, this is one of the first indications to other road users that a bicyclist might be planning a move. In urban areas, driver guidance is to signal 100 feet or 3 to 5 seconds before making a turn or a lane change. Being able to remove one hand from the handlebars to signal while maintaining a straight line is another important bike handling skill to have. Extending your arm to the direction you want to turn is the clearest way to show your intentions. It is still acceptable to use the traditional upright left-hand signal to indicate a right-hand turn. Use the left arm extended at shoulder height with the left palm facing down and back when indicating slowing or stopping. Using your left hand ensures that your signal is in the sight line of the driver behind you. The next several slides demonstrate where to position yourself within the lane during different traffic situations. Again, it is important to not ride too far to the right, as cars may take this as a signal that they can share the lane when it is not safe to do so. They may overtake you and turn right in front of you. Bicyclists who place themselves toward the middle or the middle left of the lane at intersections effectively indicate to other road users the right they have to the roadway. In image number 1, it is good to note that if the cyclist was to turn left after moving through the intersection, it's important to use the far left turn lane to do so. Here are some pro tips for left turns and bike lanes. In this picture, we see a bicyclist and a vehicle sharing a lane. Have you ever wondered how much space it takes to actually be able to share a lane comfortably with a vehicle? If we consider putting 2 to 3 feet of clearance from the curb to the bicyclist, the width of the cyclist, and 3 to 4 feet from the car, as well as the amount of space that a car takes up on a road, that is upwards of 15 or more feet that a lane needs to be in order to let a bicyclist and a car share the lane. In Kansas City, there are not many roadways that are designed at that width. So in that case, oftentimes there's a need to take the lane. Taking the lane is when the bicyclist has determined there is not enough space to share a lane. This can be something that inexperienced riders may not be comfortable doing. However, the longer a person rides, the more confident they will become doing this. For example, one of the most common places where I take the lane is when there is a 2-lane road with medians. I also tend to take the lane when coming to intersections. When passing parked cars, be aware of drivers that may be exiting. Make sure you give yourself enough space to avoid the door zone. Also, do not zigzag in and out of parked cars. If you were a vehicle driver behind a bike rider who was doing this, you would assume this is not a predictable driving behavior. This list probably reflects several techniques that you would use when changing lanes as a vehicle driver. This is the traffic situation that requires the most planning and skill handling as you are scanning, signaling, riding in a straight line, and merging. So road hazards and crash prevention. A hazard is anything that can cause you to crash and can include ice, snow, puddles of water, metal plates or drains that can be slippery when wet or loose, glass, trash, or washout collection, cracks, especially longitudinal cracks in the road, loose or wild animals, wind gusts from fast-moving vehicles, especially large vehicles. About half of cyclist crashes are single rider falls. If you can skillfully control your bike by starting, stopping, signaling, and turning smoothly, you will minimize this risk. When it comes to tracks, cross them or longitudinal cracks at a 90-degree angle. If the front wheel of a bicycle gets lodged in the gap between tracks and road, the bike will be stopped and the rider will crash. For adult cyclists, about half of the car/bike crashes are caused by cyclists who make unsafe decisions. Follow traffic laws, obey signs and signals, and use correct lanes for turns and straight-throughs. More than 90% of crashes can be avoided with these 3 steps. Know when to take the lane and when to share a lane. Use lane position to tell drivers what you are doing and discourage them from making right hooks, left crosses, or other unsafe movements. When all else fails, understand how to maneuver your bicycle to avoid crashing or limit consequences of a crash. Take comfort in knowing that as rider experience increases, the crash rate decreases. Approximately 36,000 traffic fatalities per year, about 800 of which are bicyclists. Up to half of bike crashes are from falls, not collisions. Accident implies that a crash was inevitable when we know that's not the case. In making a crash seem inevitable, the term accident implies that no one is at fault, and thus no one is required to do anything. Accident is a somewhat numbing term as opposed to crash. It often keeps us from wanting to do more to change the circumstances which made the crash possible. A vehicle driver's visual field becomes more limited at higher speeds. In essence, you can see more the slower you go. On a fast street, vehicle drivers are much less likely to slow or stop, either because they don't see you, or slowing or coming to a stop feels like a sudden action to them. The force involved in a crash is directly related to the speed at the time of the crash. The bottom graphic shows the probability of surviving a crash when a pedestrian or bicyclist is hit at different speeds. When a driver doubles their speeds from 20 to 40 miles per hour, the impact is 4 times greater. The braking distance is also 4 times longer. Triple the speed from 20 to 60 miles per hour and the impact and braking distance is 9 times greater. At 60 miles per hour, your stopping distance is greater than that of a football field. Increase the speed to 80 miles per hour and the impact and braking distance are 16 times greater than at 20 miles per hour. High speeds greatly increase the severity of crashes and stopping distances. Suggestions for safe group rides. Understand the purpose of your ride. Set group ride expectations. Review the rules of the road. Demonstrate hand signals. Introduce your leader and your sweep. Beforehand, prepare your leader or sweep with what to do in case of a crash. Also review what to do if there is a crash and what are signs of a concussion. Identify regrouping locations. To review, both Kansas and Missouri state that a bicycle must be equipped with a front-facing white light visible from 500 feet. They both also state that the bicycle shall have a rear-facing red reflector which is visible from 600 feet. A good idea is to place reflective items on any moving parts of the bike, back of shoes, pedals, wheels, even back of gloves. However, remember that reflectors only work if there is a light shining on them. Vehicles may not have their lights on, or reflective pieces may be obstructed by clothing. There are numerous types of lights out there, but there is a difference between lights that allow you to see, such as headlight style lamps, and those that help you be seen, such as the little blinky lights. When deciding what else you might need to equip your person and your bike with, consider what kind of riding you will be doing and what is the weather like. Here's a short list of common tools to pack. When locking up your bicycle is important if you need to leave it unattended for a time. There are cable locks, chain locks, and more heavy-duty U-locks. When locking up, make sure to secure a portion of your frame, like the top tube, seat tube, or down tube, to the bike rack. Placing locks on areas like the seat post, handlebars, front fork, or your wheel allow an opportunity for your bike to be stolen, as these parts of the bike can be removed. I appreciate your time and patience going through these slides with me. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to reach out